Good morning, it's Carol Martine, and I'm back in my studio at the end of the year, and I'm going to be looking back at these two pieces that I did towards the end of the year. I thought I would share some of the tips and techniques with you, and if you are more interested, you may find these on my videos. Let's look at this fall journal first. While I was browsing through YouTube, I found joggles.com, and the wonderful lady was selling tunnel books, and I was fascinated by them, and I thought, I had an aha moment. What would happen if I took some of my watercolor paper and I cut a tunnel to make a book of my own to experiment in? So this book was by way of an experiment. If you can see, we have a large diamond shape, a square, and this little girl, this sweet little girl in this vintage Halloween picture is on the very back. So let's begin. The cover, when opened up to the full size of the watercolor page, consists of collaged vintage Halloween pictures and some work of my own, some doodling of flowers, which I am forever practicing because I love, love, love doing them. These are some stamps which I embellished. These, of course, are stencils, which I added spooky grays and paint colors to. And here again, I want to show you that this is about the time that I discovered this handy-dandy, sweet little tool, which produced a lot of this look that I think went so well for this fall tunnel journal. So, right, let's look at the first spread. And here we have a small square that shows right through to the back cover. More of the same motif that I have on the front and back covers. Here, the square is a little bit larger. I used, yes I do, I remember I used gouache, some stencils, some stamps, some doodle flowers. I wanted this one to be a little bit different in color, a little bit towards the lighter shade of fall colors. The next spread has the largest square, more of my doodles, stamping of fine print, doodle flowers, one of my very favorite feather stencils. This is from a stencil that I cut myself out of a manila, sheet of a manila, on front cover of a sheet of manila from a folder. Here we have the center of the book, in which you'll notice that both of the openings are the same size, so that you're tunneling back this way and towards the back. And if we hold this tightly, we can see that each one of the pages that we had just seen is represented in some small way in the center of this side of the spread. I had just purchased a few paint pens, and I tried them out there using one of my doodle flowers. Here, more of my very favorite background stencil that I use quite often. another vintage Halloween picture. And here's the stamp, which I embellished with, the pumpkins are embellished with leaves. But you'll notice the full effect of looking through the tunnel from the center spread of the book. This shows us through to the front cover, and this through to the back cover, and you can almost tell what is going to come up on the next few spreads. And this one, I decided to do kind of a Halloweenish effect of my own. I used acrylics, my very favorite two acrylics for making skies, which I still love. I don't like dead white clouds, and so this very pale shade of off-white makes a lovely cloud. I used, these two are stamps. These are stamps. This is my tree. And I just had at it to make it feel a little bit spooky and Halloweenish. And here you'll notice now that the squares are getting smaller as we go through towards the back, towards this little girl. I was quite tickled with the way this one came out. Here is another one in which I left the background paper, watercolor paper. I did a lot of stenciling, and I did stenciling here with watercolor. I wanted to practice using watercolors through a stencil again, and I got kind of good results here. I'm quite happy with those. And the final, or back page, you'll notice the little opening, the little square, shows her, and she shows through to the front, and here again, following the motif within the book. This was, and oh, you'll notice again, this little goodie. If you see them, purchase one, they're wonderful. So, here is the full vintage picture. And here she is again, coming up through this book. I think I'm going to try at least, I hope to try at least one more of these in 2017, because now that I kind of have the idea of what to do, I will take less time doing it. One mistake that I did make on this one was that when I pushed the pages in, I didn't realize that I had to trim the edges, so these edges had to be trimmed after the fact, so to speak, in order to get the book to look a little bit neater. So, that's this job done, and this is my Flower Power journal, done in with watercolor papers, as you can see, similar to the fall book. This journal, I decided to use that handmade stencil and use it to cut through on the cover to bring up the idea of flower. And on this cover spread, I practiced more of my fantasy doodle flowers. I used acrylic for the stenciling, and I have a multi-flower stencil that I used as the background. I even managed to get some of my very, very favorite shimmer egg Target paint on top of the blue flowers. So, as you can see, it is just a hodgepodge of practice and fun. And at the very end, I attached some of this pretty ombre silk ribbon that I have with my needlework, that I have left in my needlework and stitchery box. And I thought that one looked quite pretty there. So let's go through this book now. This piece is a napkin. This I did in pencil on the edge of each of the pages, so it was kind of a lead-in idea for what I was going to have here. You'll notice we have the openings that almost work, oddly enough, almost work with the shape of these magnolias. And this is a napkin, and I have started to attach my napkins with Yoo-Hoo glue sticks because I can get this nice flat effect with not too much rippling because of wetness, and that permits me then to work on top of these with a dry or semi-dry either oil pastel. On this one on this one I use some pencils, some watercolor pencils and regular colored pencils. So this again was an experiment, but you'll notice my shimmer egg got into it because I thought these white magnolias needed to come forward a little bit. And some of my 15 or 20-year-old Jo Sonja acrylic gold for the background stencil. I was quite tickled with that page, and you'll notice what happens when you do something like this. Might get a little bit of bleed through. My fault that I didn't come and check more frequently to dab that out, but I'm not letting that bother me. I've grown enough in my art this year that, what is the expression? Oh, I don't sweat the small stuff. So, next job, and if you'll notice, I use good old-fashioned waxed paper between pages. Here, more napkins. And this was the penciled on outline motif on the edge of the page. And I kind of used it to lead into using these napkins. And here, I used the Yoo-Hoo stick to keep this napkin nice and flat, because when I put the Yoo-Hoo stick down on here, it's a dryish glue, and the napkins stay just a treat. We'll see what happens. This one was one of the first times that I used silvers and grays as a main color, and I think, considering the colors of the flowers, I think this kind of worked a treat. This background coloration here and here is my go-to gouache, cheapo gouache. I think the box of 24 gouache little plates was maybe $5. But it works a treat to add a little glow, color glow. I'll put those back in later. Here, this was the motif for this page, and on this one I decided I did some collaging, and I did a scribble flower and pencil, and then I used oil pastels to add the color to this large focal flower, and some oil pastels for these leaves. Experimenting. There are parts of this, of course, that I'm not that tickled with, but there again, practice makes perfect. This is the center of the book that you can see is stitched with some glimmery thread that I had in my needlepoint stash. This was a great fun practice of flower shapes and doodles. But before that, I applied some very light gouache to lay down a little color. This was my motif at the edge of the paper. And on top of that, I laid down some stencils with some more gouache through the stencil. It ran a little bit here, but it certainly does not take away from the final spread. I then penciled on these flowers. Now I have to be honest, I don't trust myself or like to erase too much, so I do lightly, maybe with a number 2H hard, so I don't get too much rub off. I do usually do things like this with a pencil first, and then I go to my markers. On this page, I used quite a bit of watercolor, gold watercolor, and you'll notice how satisfactory a finish we get on that. It does glow, doesn't it? And the last page that I just did just before Christmas was this one, because I decided that I needed to take the bit in my teeth and do something that was not what I usually do. Here, this was the motif at the edge of the page, and so I used my hand-cut stencils from manila folders and laid them down and ran a pencil through to define and did the background work. Now that took a long time, and I many times questioned whether or not it was worth the doing. Oh, by the way, I used black gesso for this because I like the depth of the black. The line work, this is the same gold watercolor that I used in this one. And it is this Gansai Tambe Starry Colors. I do enjoy this. I know there is Fine Tech is another one that's out there. I have not bothered to purchase it because I did purchase this one, and we have to restrain ourselves a little bit, don't we? I don't really think so, but on supplies. So that's what I used here, and I used, if you want to see the process for this one, of course I have a video on my channel to make these stripes, and I think they just set this side of the page off fairly nicely. I laid down some watercolors and let them flood and dry in place, and that's what I used for the motif on the flowers on this side. This is more of the yellow gold from here, and you will see the depth of the gold from watercolor. I do believe, I have to be honest, I do believe there are 2 coats on here and 2 coats on here. So, and now we turn this over and see again that this was a fun addition. I think I'm going to do some more of that in 2017 on my pages because, well, I just like it. I just like what it does, and I don't mind peeking through to the next page, but I have to be honest, you have to think a little bit about what is going to show through. I would not have been so tickled if I had been looking at Christmas red and green, trying to come through there, but that's just me. That's certainly an artistic choice of yours. So, I do hope that you have enjoyed having a peep through at the end of 2016 with 2 books that were conceived. The idea, of course, from products for sale on joggles.com and conceived by me as a tryout for seeing what would happen. And if you have enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. I would appreciate a comment, sharing it with a friend, and certainly I would be most tickled if you would subscribe to my channel. All right, I think I'm going to have one more visit before the end of the year, with some things that I've done that I thought I might share. But these two are Carol's originals, and I thought you might enjoy seeing them together. Bye now.